Welcome to an UnConference about students with additional needs in remote learning environments. Produced by Benetech, Bridge Multimedia, and CAST, with support from the U.S. Department of Education, Institute of Education Sciences, and the Office of Special Education Programs. Ideas that work. Module 8. EdTech Vendors Forum featuring Microsoft, Google, Apple, and Savas Learning. Mike Tolfson, Microsoft Education. Laura Allen, Google. Meg Wilson, Apple. And Richard Ferry, Savas Learning. Now from Texas, meet one of our special educator remote rock stars who will present Too Much Tech? Too Little Tech? Finding the Balance.
Hi, my name is Irene Salome, and I am an early childhood special education teacher at Lorenzo G. Loya Primary in the San Elizario Independent School District. I am the collaborative teacher, meaning that I teach a class of 3-year-olds, half of which are typically developing and half which need special needs and are on IEPs. During this trying time, I think the biggest struggle is balancing all the technology that comes from remote learning from what we know to be good practice in early childhood, which is no screen time. So the way that I'm meeting the needs of my children are I'm creating instructional packets that have different activities, different hands-on activities, and giving them materials that they need in order to be successful. So when we do have our Zoom meetings, our circle time, I also try to make it very interactive. So today, during our circle time, we talked about nature and the plants and the insects. And so all of my kids brought something. We had a 3-year-old with a roly-poly on his hand, and just the oral language that comes from that. I think we just have to see technology as the platform and not the end or the product. So I'm just using that as a medium because as an early childhood educator, I'm still going to advocate for you need to play outside, you need to touch things, you need to play in the mud. And so I try to balance that out with everything that's being demanded from our kids at this time. It's stressful for them. And so I want to make learning how it was in my classroom, which is it's fun. I want to fall in love with learning, and I'm going to do it through a screen if I have to. And that's pretty much it. I also try to touch base on their social emotional learning. So every day I send them a little video. I let them know how loved they are and how much their teacher misses them until we can see each other again.
Hello, my name is Cynthia Curry, and I'm the director of the National Center on Accessible Educational Materials for Learning at CAST, a project of the Office of Special Education Programs. It's my pleasure to be the moderator for this panel. Before we begin, here are some reminders about the webinar environment. First, please remember to keep your audio muted. Second, if you have a question, please use the Q&A box, not the chat box. This will help keep everyone focused and reduce the risk of your question being missed. Third, live captioning is being provided. If not already visible, click on the closed caption button to view the captions along the bottom of your screen. On to the introduction of our panel presentation, Leveraging Accessibility for Remote Learning Success. Each presenter represents an EdTech company that produces a product that your school or family likely uses, and quite possibly on a daily basis as a result of our nationwide pivot to remote learning. But you may not be aware that these products include features that support learner variability, because not all students interact with technology in the same way. Leveraging these features can mean greater independence, participation, and progress for students who are learning from home. First, we'll hear from Mike Tholfsen, Principal Product Manager at Microsoft Education. Then, Laura Allen, Senior Chrome and Chrome OS Accessibility Program Manager at Google. And finally, Rick Ferry, VP of Accessibility at Savas Learning Company. Immediately following Rick's presentation, we'll follow up for questions for all 3 panelists. If you have a question for a specific presenter, please include their name with your question in the Q&A box. We will try to get through all of the questions, but you are welcome to follow up with the speakers directly after the panel. So, without further ado, it's my pleasure to kick off the Leveraging Accessibility panel.
Our next track is titled Leveraging Accessible Technology for Remote Learning Success. Please welcome Mike Tolfsen, Principal Product Manager, Microsoft Education.
Hi, my name is Mike Tholson. I'm a product manager on the Microsoft Education team, and I focus on accessibility and inclusion in the class. Now, Microsoft's mission as a company is to empower every person on the planet to achieve more. And our education mission is to empower every student on the planet to achieve more. Now, I like to say that means we're not just trying to empower 84% of the students. We're not trying to empower 93.7% of the students. We want to empower 100% of the students. And so inclusion is a core part of our mission statement at Microsoft. Now, many of you might be thinking about Microsoft in an old school way. A lot of people think of Microsoft from maybe the year 2011, where you say, well, they make Windows software and it's really expensive. Well, what we have here with inclusion and accessible tools, we're the modern Microsoft in the year 2020. We have inclusive and accessible tools built into all of our platforms: Windows, Mac, browser, Android, iPad, iOS, and it's all free. And so making sure that we empower every student in technology that's built in, mainstream, non-stigmatizing, which is very important, and free, that's a core part of what we do now. So as you think about all of the technologies across accessibility and how our company thinks about it, these are the sets we do: learning, visual, hearing, mobility, neurodiversity, and mental health. And we have capabilities built in all across the spectrum that handle these. Now, you might be thinking, I didn't know I had access to all these technologies for accessibility already. And that's part of the challenge that I'm trying to help with. We want to make sure that everyone knows you have access to all of these tools already, and they're free. So what I often talk about is the inclusive classroom. We talk about reading, writing, math, and communication. And we use the principles of inclusive design to focus on all these categories. So for example, our reading technologies like Immersive Reader might really help a student with dyslexia, but it helps students that are non-native speakers, early readers, people with vision impairments, ADHD, mainstream readers. It's the same with writing, things like editor, speech to text. We have a bunch of free tools built into OneNote to help with math and inclusive and accessible technologies for doing math. Or communication, with things like real-time translation in over 67 languages, helping non-native speakers, deaf and hard of hearing students, the parents of non-native speakers, and all these capabilities are inclusively designed so they will help all students. And that's a core part of the mission of what we do. Well, one of the things we offer are these interactive guides across these different capabilities: inclusive reading, inclusive writing, math, communication. These are free, web-based, interactive training guides that any educator, student, or teacher can use. And especially with distance learning and remote learning, this is really important. So anyone can quickly ramp up and learn about things like the Immersive Reader or speech to text, or our translation and captioning capabilities, or our free math tools. So these can be shared broadly, and we encourage people to explore these guides and share them. And we have some other things. We just launched a brand new site for special education and accessibility resources during remote learning. This is a really critical topic. Students from special education backgrounds or students that have accessibility needs, when you're learning at home, it's extra important to be able to use technology to help enhance and amplify what you're doing. So we launched an entire new site dedicated just to this topic. And it doesn't just cover products and scenarios. It also covers all sorts of new things that you might need to be thinking about doing remote learning and accessibility from home. We also have quick tip videos and guides and resources all across the board, a wealth of information on this site. And the last thing I'll talk about is we have a quick tips video playlist all for accessibility and education topics and products. So you can just spend 2 minutes to learn about the Immersive Reader, or spend another minute to learn about the inclusive math tools we have. And these are really short and sweet videos that can help people get up and running really fast. So if you want to get a copy of this presentation, there's a link right here. Feel free to reach out in email or on Twitter. We really want to make sure we can help people have the tools built in, mainstream, non-stigmatizing, and free. Thanks.
Next on our Leveraging Accessible Technology for Remote Learning Success track, we have Laura Allen, Senior Chrome and Chrome OS Accessibility Program Manager, Google.
Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Allen, and I'm a Senior Accessibility Program Manager on the Chrome and Chrome OS team at Google. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today, and I hope that you and your families are all staying safe and well wherever you may be. At Google, our mission is to organize the world of information and make it universally accessible and useful. We care deeply about building products and tools to support users with a wide range of needs, especially in the realm of education. We believe in building accessible and collaborative tools and empowering teachers to reach all learners. And we believe in the magic of educators, parents, and guardians. At the end of the day, the technology itself can only do so much, and it's really the human connections and innovative approaches that can really help to close the remaining gaps in the learning environment. During this challenging time of COVID-19, billions of students have now shifted into distance learning. And this shift has presented challenges for everyone, but it can be particularly difficult for students with disabilities or specific needs who had been getting more hands-on support in the classroom. We know that teachers, as well as parents and guardians, are struggling to determine the best solutions to keep every child learning and productive during this time. And we've pulled together a handful of resources that we hope can help. To begin, the Google for Education team has created a new site with a significant amount of information and teaching tips. It's available at g.co/teachfromhome. This site has trainings and tutorials for teachers, schools, and families, and dives into topics like setting up your home for video calling, recording lessons, making websites for students using Google Sites, Google Classroom, and much more. The collaborative nature of G Suite apps like Google Docs and Google Slides makes it possible for teachers and teaching aides to continue supporting students in real time from afar, especially for some of those students who might need a bit more hands-on assistance with certain assignments or lessons. We also recognize that parents have essentially had to become teachers and tech support for their kids now that they're all at home together. Many children have brought home their Chromebooks and are using G Suite tools during the day, and parents might not be very familiar with them. To try to help, we've created a comprehensive guide for parents that dives into different accessibility features and functionalities across Chromebooks and G Suite that they can explore with their children. This is also available on the family section of the Teach from Home site. For example, Chromebooks come with a variety of ways to make content larger or more visible, such as adjusting the mouse cursor size, inverting colors, zooming in on content, highlighting key parts of the screen, like the cursor or the text caret, and more. There are also different forms of spoken feedback built in, whether you need full screen reading access to read everything aloud, or if you just need a way to select certain text to be read aloud with colored word-by-word highlighting as it reads. The latter can be really helpful for students with low vision, but also for students with dyslexia, processing challenges, or even new language learners. Chromebooks also have a lot of ways to make text input more accessible, whether that means adjusting keyboard and touchpad settings, using an on-screen keyboard, or using dictation into any text field. For students who really benefit from using speech-to-text, Google Docs also has a tool called voice typing, which can be really useful for dictating longer amounts of text and editing and formatting your text with your voice. Many teachers use voice input as a strategy with their students to get their thoughts flowing a bit more when they might be feeling a bit stuck on writing assignments. And being home versus in a loud classroom can actually even lead to more success when using dictation. There are also a handful of ways to make these tools more accessible for students who are deaf or hard of hearing. On Chromebooks, you can adjust the audio settings and also customize the styles of closed captions across videos. Google Slides comes with the ability to show automatic live captions as the presenter is speaking, which is what I'm using now, actually. This can be very helpful for teachers to use during their distance learning lessons, in case the students have a poor connection at home or have other noise going on around them, making it harder to hear. Google Meet, which is used for video calls, also has live captions, and you can turn them on with the CC button at the bottom of the call. There are a lot more accessibility tools that are built into Chromebooks and G Suite apps, and you can also further customize the experience with a variety of Chrome extensions. many of which we discuss in the guide for parents and guardians, as well as in recent blog posts and webinars we've led on this subject. We know that we at Google certainly don't have all the answers. This has been a significant shift in the world, and we are all still adjusting. But we want to help ensure that people know about the various ways to make their Google tools more accessible and useful. And we also want to hear your feedback and your requests and any other tips that you'd like to share with others. We created a simple form to crowdsource some of these tips from educators and parents, and it's available at goo.gle/A11Y-tips. And we're finding ways to share these tips more broadly. Check out the Google for Education site at g.co/edu accessibility and the Teach from Home site for more resources. Also, if you're interested in learning more about Chromebook accessibility tools, check out the Chromebook videos in our Google Accessibility playlist available at goo.gle/A11Y-YouTube. If you have specific feedback, please do feel free to reach out to our disability support team as well at g.co/disability support. Thank you so much, and I hope you all stay well.
Our Leveraging Accessible Technology for Remote Learning Success Track continues with Richard Ferry, VP of Accessibility, Savas Learning Company.
Greetings, my name is Rick Ferry, and I'm excited to be part of this not only as a long-standing advisor to CAST and the AIM Center, but also in my new role as VP of Accessibility for Savas Learning Company. Now, for those of you that don't know, Savas Learning Company is the rebranded former Pearson K-12 Learning Group. So we get to carry on a long-established tradition of excellent content while we continue to produce innovative digital products that you can find in more than 10,000 districts around the country. What really sold me, though, on joining Savas was the empathy they have for learners and educators. The idea of making sure students who have additional needs are successful with our products is paramount to them. And because it's been my life's work for a long time, this is really a dream job for me. So when I took my dream job 2 months ago, I certainly didn't envision the circumstances we find ourselves in now. A lot of us have been managing the hype and some of the unrealistic expectations about technology and digital products would mean education, while still trying to promote and push them to get past barriers that we knew existed. But I think the pandemic and the sudden movement to completely remote and or
start to perhaps become more common into the future. So thank you. I believe that any of the links that were great, there were some links that were dropped in the chat. If you can't copy them, I would say, unless we have tech support that says otherwise, if you jot them down, these links, they will stay in the chat. Thank you so much.
Watch these other special education UnConference modules. Module 1, Platforms for Accessible Remote Learning. Opening welcome, Ed Metz, PhD, and Sarah Brazel, PhD, EDIES. Keynote, Sarah Chomsky, Growing Up and Bouncing Back. Module 2, Personalized Parent-Child Supports. Module 3, Curriculum Supports. Module 4, Math During COVID-19. Module 5, Adapting for Disabilities. Module 6, Research Updates. Module 7, Reaching Complex Students Through Collaboration on Distance Education. Module 9, Closing Keynote, Richard Ellenson, What Have We Learned About Learning? Closing Comments, Tara Corshane, EDOSEP, and Kristen Kane, HHS.